Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is the first place award winner of the 2015 New Orleans Press Club's Excellence in Journalism Award for the category of Best TV Sports Show.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover all the home teams, the New Orleans Saints, the LSU Tigers, Tulane Greenway. We're also going to talk about a high school game at Zephyr Field this weekend. Joining us on the program, a great panel tonight. Gus Kattengell of ESPN 100.3 FM here in New Orleans, and Garland Gillen of Fox 8 Sports. And guys, welcome to the show. Love having you on the show. Thanks for coming back. We always like to start off letting folks know a little bit about what you're involved in. And Gus, you got a long list of things you're involved in besides radio. Why don't you jump into it?
Oh, man, just a lot of it is that. And then obviously on every single day, every weekday from 11 to 1, about to be 12 to 3. So getting that extra hour. So you might actually
I can listen to the last part
I've
of the
been
show.
Moving everywhere.
Yeah.
I'd like to eventually find the time slot. But it'll be that starting next month in October. So I'm looking forward to that. And obviously so much to talk about with that. And then obviously with Tulane being the sideline reporter there, called women's basketball play-by-play, getting ready to get started with that, and what hopefully will be a season where they go into the NCAA tournament. I know they're expecting that. So, and other than that, just the norm.
Yeah, there you go. Garland, welcome back. And, you know, I have at least one member of the Fox 8 Sports team on my show every week, my radio show. You guys are really killing it out there. Wall-to-wall coverage, whether it's the Saints, LSU, or Tulane, the apps. You got a great blog as well. Kind of lay it all out for us, what you guys are involved in.
Yeah, being at Fox 8, you say you want to be with the best team doing the best stuff. And right now we have 3 hours of program per week just dedicated to football. You know, we got Friday night football, our prep show. Saints-wise, we got Saints, Jim and Henderson Black and Gold review on Monday night. Thursday night, Saints game plan. Sunday pregame, we do Saints tailgate for an hour, and then we wrap it all up on final play. So our staff, we have a big staff, but we are stretched to the limit with all this football coverage. So we're week 4 of prep football, and college football's in week 4. So it's big time going on right now at Fox 8.
And your blog's a little bit different, right? Tell us a little about your blog.
So it's called Football Food, and it's football, soccer, and food. I do mostly restaurants. Our news director said everybody needs to get a blog, and I didn't want to be mine, just be normal. I love to eat. I love talking restaurants. Some of my good friends own restaurants, so I could sit there for like 3 hours, and we can talk Saints and restaurants. Max Ortiz, who owns Square Root, and now owns Part and Parcel. He's a massive Saints fan, and so we'll sit there and just talk forever about food and restaurants. So you know, it's fun. It's something different, and you know, I get to vent sometimes on some problems. Parkway Bakery, the line's too long, you gotta go to the bar, that kind of stuff. So, you know, just small things that help people out. I don't do reviews. I don't do reviews of restaurants. That's for Brett Anderson and Todd Price and Tom Speakune. I just point out small things that a general person would know.
Well, I think it's a pretty cool blog.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Cool. Let's get started. Let's talk about the Saints first. Defense played well against the Giants. All but what, the last 19 minutes of the Oakland game. The defense been pretty stout. We got 3 turnovers, a goal line stand, gave up no touchdowns. Your thoughts on the Saints defense thus far?
Yeah, you know, I think the thing that's been interesting is people were calling me drunk earlier this week when I said, despite 2 losses, guys, I actually had hope. And looking at while it is the 3rd straight season starting 0-2, it's not the same as the first 2 seasons. And I'll say it like this. The first 2, they were terrible. There's no one there. You take a look at the Oakland game, for example. 10 points first quarter, 0 second, 3 in the third. Why did you give up 22 points? Well, the offense has got to help out a little bit on that, too. You didn't get a lot of first downs. But also, you're thin. So the attrition, the legs, they get you in that 4th quarter. You don't want to see that happen, and you want to find a way to get it. But you saw what they did in the second game. They grew up. Those young bucks, those young guys in that secondary, they got better. And the reason why I have hope with that is, and you can attest to this, the last 2 seasons, There was no defensive back anywhere around receivers. Ken Crowley is literally a millimeter or an inch away with his hand. It's there. You see a perfect still picture of him and either Cruz or the Raider receiver going up Crabtree. His hand is right there. It's literally a play or two if you're 1-1 or 2-0. So that gives me hope. You want to see it improve, but my goodness, the injuries continue there, and losing P.J. Williams is tough.
Yeah, no doubt. Your thoughts on the defense?
Yeah, just talking about P.J. Williams going to injury reserve today. That's a tough break. Delvin Breaux, broken fibula, is still, what, 3 weeks out. Keenan Lewis, we lost. The Saints lost in preseason. So now you're down to 4 healthy cornerbacks. Sterling Moore, I will say, I know he graded out bad with Pro Football Focus, the worst on the Saints defense. But I thought he had a strong performance against OBJ. That great 4th down goal line stand. He was a part of breaking up the pass. So I think he's going to get a lot of work this week. And I mean, obviously the rookies are going to get a lot of work. And I guess we're going to see J.W. Webb for the first time all season this week. But I think Ken Crawley, 2 weeks in, yes, he's gotten beat by 2 veterans.
Yes.
First week was Michael Crabtree. This past week is Victor Cruz. But he was draped all over these guys. I mean, he's going to learn these sooner or later. I know Saints do not want to hear about growing pains, but when you're dealing with rookies on this roster, that's going to happen. You
know, you take a look at those 14 points that came back for the Raiders too. The game-tying touchdown in the middle of 4 or 5 white jerseys there. That 70-plus yard run right up the gut in the middle, unlike 2 previous seasons, where you could drive a Mack truck through it and you saw green.
Yes.
Were white jerseys. And just weren't there to make the plays and make the tackle. I can coach that. I can be like, hey, get your gap. It kind of came across since they're young, maybe trying to do too much over pursuit. Point is, I saw white jerseys around there. And that's the difference to me in the previous seasons where you saw nobody there. You saw lack of athletic ability, lack of speed. I'm not seeing that here. It's just growth. I mean, it's, you know, you talk about Sterling Moore, he was there a week. You know, so, I mean, you're throwing guys literally out there. So to me, it's more about that offense.
And guys, you know, my expectations were not real high for this season. When you look at the turnover of the roster the last couple of years, now $75 million in dead money over the last 2 years. You know, this is a rebuilding team. They may not want to talk about an A-line drive being a rebuilding team, but it's a rebuilding team. But you can see that P.J. Williams will be a pretty good corner in this league if he can stay healthy. You see Ken Crawley, an undrafted free agent, you know, a guy that's going to come in with some flaws. But as you mentioned, he is with 2 of the top receivers. Yeah, he got beat at the end, but he was there. And then Sterling Moore. Again, look, I was making comments last week, you know, how are you going to bring a guy out of a scrap heap and expect him to play against OBJ? Well, they allowed him to get physical on the outside, and he played a great game. As you mentioned, he didn't grade out well, but he played well. And the hope is for the Saints going forward, they will allow those corners to be physical. And then the 2 safety set. Von Bell played well. You know, Von Bell really played well, and I was really all over Jarris Byrd, rightly so, as how he's been playing. But you know what? Last week, probably his best game in a Saints uniform. Maybe it was the fact that he only had to cover one side of the field. But all of a sudden, even with the youth and with that secondary, you're seeing they've got some talent there. Where, as you mentioned, they were devoid of talent at one time.
No doubt about it. And Garland, I know one of the things that I was talking on my show is Von Bell. How do you not get a defensive snap in week number 1? You couldn't find anywhere to do it. You finally get him out there, 9 tackles, 7 solo, a tackle for loss. Let the kid play, especially when you literally had your Ken Crowleys, your guys out there. Throw in another rookie in Von Bell. I like what he can sort of bring. There was a 3 safety look, and that's why he got in there. And I think that's when the Saints are probably best. And
he's hungry for a win.
Yeah.
He's like, we asked him on Monday, is he used to all this losing? He goes, no, I can't recall losing this much in my entire Ohio State career. He was counting preseason, too. He's like, I haven't felt what a win is like. So this guy's going to be hungry. I can't imagine next Monday night, the bright lights of Monday Night Football, how jacked up Von Bell is going to be. I mean, when you get kids from these big-time programs, Ken Crawl, Colorado, I wouldn't say big-time, but they are in the Pac-12. That's a Big 5. Right. And Devontae Harris played at Texas A&M. These are major conferences that are playing against the best receivers on the other side. These guys are ready to play right away.
Yeah. You know, and they got a little bit of pressure on the quarterback this week, which we haven't seen as well. Michael Marty playing a lot of snaps at linebacker. On the flip side, Stephon Anthony only playing 4 snaps. I got a lot of calls and questions about that this week. What about you?
I do too. I mean, I'd love to hear your explanation to it, because what Coach Payton says, it's the base defense. Base defense, so we're going to see more DBs. I get that. I have a very simple rule when it comes to players, right? Either you can play or you can't.
Right.
If you can play, I'm going to find a way to do it. And, you again, we can debate whether or not it was a smart decision or not, but you went and got Laurinaitis for a reason, right? I mean, it's almost like you've moved on from him after 1 year. Now, unless you thought that he could play either strong side or weak side and then help him grow and get somebody like Laurinaitis that's a vet and puts players in positions to make plays, okay, I get that. But on a periphery, I see 4 snaps, Garland. Am I wrong to go, uh-oh, again, here's another top draft pick where you're already thinking he's not good enough to find I'm going to find a spot for a guy if he can play or not.
And it really helped that Craig Robertson's killing it this year.
The best linebacker on the field, right?
People are not worried about Stephon Anthony, I guess, as much when they see what Craig Robertson.
Absolutely.
This is obviously Donnell Ellerbe, the injury report. He's out right now for the 3rd week in a row with a quad injury. I'm amazed how well this linebacking core is done because James Laurinaitis is not fast, okay? He's just a quarterback in the middle. He's not going to break through and make these big-time sacks. Made a fumble recovery, though, this past weekend. But, yeah, Michael Maudie, though Michael Maudie's snaps were, I think he had, it was amazing that he had a limited amount of snaps and made one of the biggest plays of the game.
Right, exactly.
But he seems to do that a lot, though.
I mean,
some guys have a nose for the football.
I mean, last year against the Falcons,
Come on.
next Monday night, this is, I'm sure he's going to be emotional as anyone since he played for Mandeville High. This defense, I am impressed. I mean, can you believe last year they scored 101 points in this? I mean, sorry. 101 points last year, and the over-under this past week was 54, and people were loading up on the over, and they scored 29 total points.
And it's interesting. You take a look at the dichotomy in that game, too. The Giants went out and got a lot of free agents to help that defense.
That paid dividends, right?
Right.
Yes,
the Saints
Olivier
are kind of
Vernon,
like, I'll take a Brown, a guy from the Cleveland Browns, I'll take a couple of undrafted rookie free agents. And it just goes to a point that I want to make that I think a lot of people don't talk about, too. Yes, Laurinaitis isn't fast, and he's not going to be the guy that makes the highlight. But you know what? There's something to be said about putting people in position and knowing where that defense goes. And you were there the very first time he talked to us in OTAs, and you heard other players say, even D lineman, he can tap me on the butt. Fairley was talking about that specifically. That stood out in my head. I'm lined up wrong, or he sees something, he'll tap one of my backsides to let me know which way it's coming, and now I know. If you can just put other players to do that, okay, yeah, I would love him to be a Kuechly for Carolina. But if he can make sure guys are not missing assignments, and that's one thing I've noticed in 2 games. You don't see a ton of blown assignments.
That's right.
You don't see a ton of guys going the other way. Delvin Breaux came on our show in January and said, there are people that didn't know where they were going. Give me somebody that can line up the defense, and I'll settle for the fact that and he's still getting a high number of tackles, but he's in the middle of the pack, and that's fine. But he's lining up people, and I think that's helping a lot of this season.
And that's what he was brought in for, to be the quarterback of the defense. You saw it last year. You saw it over and over again. At times, Stephon Anthony not getting the call in times. Guys still moving while the snap is going down. And, that was a big problem. But, again, he was a rookie, put in a position where he's never played before. And this is kind of, I guess, maybe kind of his quote-unquote redshirt year for right now, because we don't know what's going to happen in terms of injury down the line. But, you mentioned Robertson, and to me, he's the best linebacker on the field for this team.
Yeah, he's done a fantastic job, and we saw in training camp. Another guy that did really well in training camp that hasn't really seen the field is Stupar.
Right.
Stupar and Robertson, we were doing a ton of stories on him when we were in West Virginia, so we knew that Robertson was going to play well. I also got to put a lot on this on Dennis Allen because you know what? I watched Rob Ryan's press conference, Rex Ryan's press conference on Monday. They fired their OC the other day. The Bills did. The defense right now with Rob and Rex running it together is on the bottom end of the league right now, and they're talking about firing all those guys. So you see what they ran out of New Orleans. Dennis Allen, last year it was too late for Dennis to right all the wrongs that Rob did. But now that he's had an entire OTAs, off season to get his message across, I think that's a major deal for this team that Ryan is out.
And I'm excited to see what happens when Rankins actually gets in. He was doing well, and then you get a Bro back. I mean, these are legit and key pieces.
These are starters.
Yeah, I mean, these are big-time pieces to sort of get. This isn't, did they swing and miss again? Those guys can play, I think, and they're going to help out.
Well, the question is, again, what's going to happen in that secondary once again? You bring B.W. Webb in, who again, as I mentioned on last week's show, I had to look him up to see who he was. His claim to fame is intercepting Drew Brees when he was with the Tennessee Titans. So the hope is that Webb can play as well as Moore did this past week, and maybe it's a stopgap till you can get Delvin Breaux back, and some of these young guys can grow as well. Let's shift to the offensive side of the ball because, again, it's hard to believe that this team has played as well as it's had defensively, with the exception, again, of that last 19 minutes against Oakland. The offense looked like a juggernaut in week 1. They couldn't get out their own way in week 2. Maybe that was a byproduct of the Giants' upgrade on defense, but it started up front. The offensive line that looked spectacular in week 1 was really struggling in both pass protection and the running game against the Giants.
I think a little stubbornness sometimes, and we've seen it in 10 years now. And I get it, believe me. You look at Oakland, and I thought Willie Snead said it best in the locker room. They thought they could take advantage of that secondary in Oakland, and did. And I hear you. The thing that concerns me more than anything else is 3 rushing attempts in the second half. I heard Jim Henderson say it on Monday when he was on the morning news show, and I'm at the gym, I'm in the cardio, and I stopped pedaling the exercise bike.
I'm always doing Jim Henderson talks. It's like, God is speaking.
Exactly.
Everybody stop.
So when he goes, they only rushed 3 times for 6 yards, and I start thinking, I'm like, you got to help Drew Brees out here, okay? And it's just stubbornness, because I know this is he's done this the whole time, and I get he's going to Canton, and I get he's good and he can throw the ball. But you had a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter against Oakland, and you still didn't run the ball that much, okay? And then in the Giants game, it was close games. I understand if there's shootouts, and I understand because the defense is bad like they have in the last 2 years, you have to throw the ball a lot. Why are you not running? And I don't understand it. I'm not saying you're going to do well, and you're not going to do a ton. There's 2 things that stood out to me, and it's 1 point total. 2 rookie quarterbacks, one on the road this past week, Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz, okay, for Dallas and Philadelphia. One was a division game, the other at Chicago, and they needed a win. Both teams ran 30 times, and both teams ran for 100 yards. They helped their rookie quarterbacks. Now, the leading carrier for Philadelphia was Sproles, 30 or 40 yards, 12 carries. It's not a ton per back. You got to do it. You got to help them out. I don't know if they rush 10 times more, Garland, if they win at New York, but I look at that offense, and when I hear Drew Brees say, I struggle with pressures, I struggled picking things up, the running game could help with that. And it's a mindset with this team.
13 carries total. They threw the ball 44 times. And Max Unger, run it up the gut a little more. Max Unger's graded out fantastic the first 2 weeks of the season. Zach Strief did well before he was out injured. I thought the line played pretty strong in that game. Obviously, they did not get the running yards they wanted, but you got to keep pushing it down there. 13 carries. I mean, Les Miles' head would explode if they ran the ball 13 times and passed it 44.
Strief goes out. Any update on his status? Because, again, Clemente moved out to the right tackle, not Pete, where they left at left guard. They bring Tony Hills back this week. Any update? I know he's not telling us anything on an A-line drive, but is Strief expected back for this weekend?
He said he was fine this morning.
Yeah, and I mean, Armstead missed practice, but he missed practice last week, so I wouldn't be worried. I was interested that Willie Snead was on the injury report. That's an intriguing one, but I don't worry about the wide receiving core right now. Strief, I would think that he could fight through it there. We'll see. I mean, it's earlier in the week. With everything moved back a day, it's a little strange with injury report. They only sent out one so far. So
well, this is obviously a game where the offensive line is going to have to step up and give Brees some time. And as you mentioned, open up some holes for the running game as well. You mentioned the young wide receiving core, Garland. I'll tell you what. You look at the top 3. I say as good as any top 3 receiving core in the NFL, right?
Well, we saw probably the top 3 receiving core this past weekend with Odell, Victor Cruz, and Sterling Shepard. That's one of the top 3 I'd probably say in the league, but they got to be right there. They didn't put this. Now, last week they put up monster numbers. This week they just didn't. It didn't show.
It was a more physical game, and that was one of the things we worried about. Can they get off the jam? What happens if teams are very, very physical? Because they're not exactly the biggest receivers out there, with the exception of Thomas. Snead and Cook's obviously a little bit smaller, but that was the only thing I was worried about. When they get into a physical game, are they going to still be where they need to be on that route tree, the timing of the offense? They struggled a little bit with that, but guys catch the football, and they can do something with it afterwards.
Yeah, I'm running through my head right now, like just going through divisions. I can't think of a team that has 3 receivers that are targeted that many times. And Michael Thomas, you knew in training camp. I mean, second day of practice, The one-handed catch on the bottom fields at West Virginia, we replayed it numerous times. He had like 3 or 4 one-handed catches during training camp. He did it against the Houston Texans also. You knew that he was going to be a star. Once again, when we talked about on the defensive side of the ball, Ohio State guy knows how to win. Sometimes it's just you pick up champions like him, they're going to deliver right away.
Yeah. Your thoughts on the wide receiving core?
Yeah, I think it's as good as anywhere in the NFL. And again, it's interesting as you're talking about. I remember being on the sidelines, the Saints sideline reporter in 07-08, playing against Carolina, and those physical, matchups like that, where you can see that. And that's where, again, I go back to the running game. Believe me, I'm not saying rush the ball 40 times. But if I'm a defensive back and I'm worried about I'm not even worried about that. You said 13 times. I will settle. I'll give you 13 runs. My linebackers or safety will make a play. I'm going to focus on you as a receiver. And I think that's where I can help. If I'm standing in coverage and have to peek to my left in case there's a run or not, or even if it is for a yard or two and I have to make the tackle, that's a little more physical exertion that I have to do. And I think you can help your receivers from that. And I just go back to last year where you saw, remember Brandon Cooks, we were wondering out loud, and I was kind of defending the kid, bust or not bust. I'm like, well, you have no tight end play right now. You have no running game. So if I'm a defense, who am I focusing on? Right. Brandon Cooks. Sure. I don't know who Snead is. I'll let him catch 4 passes. I'm not letting Cooks catch it. He got off middle and towards the end of the season when the Saints ran the ball and Ben Watson started catching balls over the middle. So I think we're still going to see the best, obviously, for Michael Thomas. Look, Snead's had a couple of games here, right? We know what Cooks can do. If Fleener can start opening that middle of the field, I think you're going to see the biggest person who's going to benefit from that, I think, is Michael Thomas.
Right. Well, I think they've also learned how to utilize Cook's skill set, which has helped a lot. I don't think they realized how to use him early. They probably had a vision for him, and then they had to change that vision. But you mentioned Fleener, and look, you start looking at the guy. You knew he was inconsistent at Indianapolis. You thought maybe the panacea would be coming to New Orleans, where he was going to be targeted a lot in this offense. Right now he looks like another free agent bust. Now it's early. It's only been a couple of games, but he looks soft. He's not catching the football. Ball's in his hands. He's not catching the ball. From what I understand from those guys that are out there on a day-in, day-out basis, he's kind of struggling with the playbook still a little bit. And both him and Coleman, when you look at the depth of that wide receiving core that right now is 3 to 4 deep, they got to get past this inconsistency and start catching some footballs. That's
the issue. In Garland, it's inconsistency. I mean, people want them to succeed so badly. One with Coleman because he's 6'6".
Right.
I get that.
I don't blame Coleman for those 2 catches.
Yeah, I hear you. Drops. You're right. But what happens when you're inconsistent is you want to look at that and go, make the catch, right? But when you look at Fleener, I don't know. It's either Michael Thomas is that smart that he gets it and he gets the playbook and he knows where to go, and Drew can just do a hand signal and he can run a route that they haven't, repped, and Fleener doesn't know what to line up. Here's the issue. I get the inconsistency. When you're costing teams timeout because you don't know what to line up, that's a problem. Yeah,
3 catches, 35 yards. He's had 12 targets this year, and you paid 5 years, $36 million. We talked to him on Monday, and he said he's working hard on it. I mean, he talked about it during off-season OTAs. He was talking about every day he's doing flashcards, playbooks. So he's been trying to work on it. I mean, he went to Stanford. It's one of the best schools in America, according to U.S. News and World Report. So you hope sooner or later he's going to figure it out. But that third down drop was a big one. I know it's early. He's going to get those comparisons. I mean, they're not even going Graham comparisons right now. We're going Ben Watson comparisons right now, and he's not even getting close to those right now.
Well, both of those guys were physical players.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about Ben Watson and his time in the league, the physicality of that guy. And Jimmy Graham, again, when he had a chance to get the football in his hands, he was physical. You don't see that out of Fleener right now. And it's unfortunate because, again, they're going to need him to be effective at that tight end position, especially because of the lack of depth that they have right now. Hooman goes out, and he's the blocking tight end who can also catch the football. Hill has been slowed by injuries. There's just not a lot there. He's got to step up right now.
The names you just mentioned, Garland, if you don't think the tight end position is important on this team, they all signed in the offseason, re-signed them, right? Hill matched the Bears. Hooman got him a new deal. They got Fleener on the free. Everyone they have, so they clearly value that position, and maybe that's why he's having trouble figuring out. Maybe it is more important than we just on the outside say, well, run left or run right or run up the middle. Maybe they are so involved in all of the plays because that's a lot of people that go sign in free agency, and I know it's a point of contention for Saints fans. We need trouble. We need help on the O-line. We need help on the defense. And you went out and signed 4 tight ends.
And they needed him. And what Chris Manhartz is now.
That's another one.
I mean, he got 5 snaps this past week, no targets. He's probably going to be in that game again next Monday. He's a big guy.
You know, guys, when it came to the special teams, especially the block kick, I believe it was Moose Johnson that said it about the time I was thinking it. The New York Giants had to see something in the scheme that allowed them to overload that side. Armstead still dealing with an injury, and of course Pete, reputation of being soft. They got to the ball in quick time. They were kind of overpowered there. But then there's still question about Lutz and again, the ability to, with the trajectory on the ball, to get the ball up quickly. Your thoughts on the special teams so far? You look at, and I had Sean Mazan on the program today, when you look at the difference between the missed kicks, the block kicks, it's the difference between winning 2 games when you really break it down.
Yeah, Will Lutz, Sean Payton's gone all in on him. You know, he said it's the best workout he's ever seen by a kicker ever.
Ever.
So, Sean has actually put himself in a corner, which is he doesn't do too often. After the game 1, he said, this guy's going to be in the league much longer than I'll be in the league. So he is just thrown. I mean, he's
never done that. 11
I think because I guess Lutz is inexperienced, so he's trying to give him confidence.
Right.
But Lutz, he talks both weeks. He talked in the locker room after. He takes the blame, even though the block kick. Now he said he was looking down the whole time. Jim Henderson on his Black and Gold review, they dissected his foot sliding. So maybe he wouldn't even have made it anyway if the guy wouldn't have got through. I don't blame that one on, but the low trajectory the week before, the short field goal, 20-something yards. You know this Falcons game is going to go down to the wire. You know it's going to go down to the wire, and it's going to be Will Lutz again. It just, the kicker position is one of Sean Payton's biggest problems in his tenure with the Saints, along with picking a defensive coordinator.
Well, in the NFL today, with so much parity, you've got to have a good kicker. I mean, it's the difference between winning and losing a game, and you know, for the most part, we've seen it almost 2 weeks in a row. So, I mean, look. He went with the young guy with the upside instead of the veteran that maybe would have been. I'm not saying that Forbath would have been a sure thing, but or even Connor Barth if they'd have kept him. But obviously they went with the unknown, and he's going to have to live with that decision going forward if it doesn't work out. Guys, I can't let you get away without talking about the dead money, because one of the reasons why this team is razor thin in depth is because of the bad decisions that have been made over the last couple of years, last few years, really. You know, the drafts which have been horrible for the most part, the free agent moves that just haven't worked out, rewarding your own, they don't pay the dividends, and then you're thinking you're giving Drew Brees a new contract, and all of a sudden, you know, you've got extra money that about $17 million or so to be able to spend, and the first thing you're doing is you're unloading C.J. Spiller. I understand that they probably have a plan in place. Let's get rid of the dead money now. Let's get rid of guys that we don't think are going to be here long term, that maybe for the next couple of years we'll be able to add some free agents. But my gosh, it's the reason why this program now has been, again, below average in terms of NFL record.
I say this all the time on my radio show. It's an acronym, SIS, S-I-S-S, Self-Inflicted Excrement Show, and it's not an E, if you know what I'm getting at. It's mind-boggling, and it's something that I always wonder, Garland, if we would be in New York or Dallas or another major market, Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton would absolutely be roasted for what's going on right here since the Super Bowl year. I get the bounty issue hurt and all that. I don't think this team's ever recovered from that. I think maybe sometimes because something that they touched went into gold, they believe that everything is going to go that way. Look, there's a reason, and we see with this team, it may not pan out, right? Second-round draft pick Stanley Jean-Baptiste, Andres Pete, some other top picks may not pan out. But you can't continue to think that you're going to be the lone person that's going to win with undrafted rookie free agents in 5th and 6th and 7th rounders. I mean, I'm just, right? So that's an issue. This dead money's an issue. And it just looks bad. It's just bad. And there's no other reason that this team is for the way they are than what they're doing. Going into that Raiders game, it is absolutely baffling, Garland. 8 players in the last 4 drafts, and 1 of 2 of those drafts. 1 whole draft, none.
Right.
That's unbelievable. And I get they're injured, but we're talking about Swan, and they're not on the field. And it's mind-boggling to me. It's like fire, Sir Saint, fire somebody. I don't care. It's like the Top Gun scene. I want some butts and I want them now. Somebody, I don't know, the guy that buys bananas, somebody over there, pay the penalty because the fans don't deserve this. And it's a joke. It shouldn't be like this.
Larry Holder, I mean, he wrote it last week, but he didn't have to write it. No, we already knew it.
Everyone knew.
Everybody knows. They are untouchable.
I know.
Neither one of them are going anywhere. I mean, look at Dell Demps.
Right.
I mean,
you want to blow my mind? Look at Dell Demps.
Yeah. Dell has done absolutely nothing. They got swept the last time in the playoffs. So to show you, if Dell's good to go, Mickey Loomis he's fine. What, $30 million in dead money? My next blog post, I'll look this up, and we're talking about it's a quarterback league. Ryan Pace, who just left the Saints and now is at Bears. Everybody's thought he's the sharpest guy. He has an awful quarterback, and there's no way they can get from under that. Right now, Cutler's out. They're bringing Brian Hoyer in. This is the second year. Wynn is like Ryan Pace on the hot seat because of bad quarterback play. Well, guess what? Mickey Loomis started in 2002. His first 4 years in the league, his record was 28-36 as general manager when he had Aaron Brooks and Jake Delhomme.
Yeah.
Drew Brees saved Mickey Loomis and saved Sean Payton. They are riding that train to the end.
Yes.
When you got a quarterback, this is a quarterback league, it'll save your job for a while. And they're still living off 2009. Yep. And 2011 wasn't a fantastic season. But Mr. Benson loves Mickey Loomis. He loves Sean Payton. And Dennis Lauscha and Mr. Benson, they make the decisions, and they are all in it together. They just gave Sean Payton a massive new contract.
He's the highest paid coach in the NFL, folks.
He wasn't before.
And like I said, I'm not saying that he's not good and he shouldn't, but Garland, I don't know if you get this too when you talk about it, whether it's your blog or just people at the gym or even on y'all shows. When you mention maybe somebody should go. Well, who are we going to get? It's like this fear that no one else will ever be able to coach or general manage. Well, then we just stick with it. You know how that goes in relationships or in business? Never well, right? And the thing to me, just mind-boggling. Again, I love to throw this out, maybe pokes the bear with something, but Sean Payton makes $2 million more than Nick Saban. I get it's different, but I would argue that it's probably harder to win national championships in college. You can at least pick and go buy players in the NFL.
He's a pain in the you-know-what.
I get it, but it's just nuts when you think about it from that perspective. And here's something that you brought up that's interesting that I brought up on my show. Sean Payton's an offensive genius, right? We would say that. Isn't it odd, now 11 years, name me a quarterback that's a backup that a team has even wanted, and that's remotely gone on to start or something, right? I mean, we see that with Brady and Belichick. They've had a few guys. I don't know if they panned out or not. Now and again, to be fair, how many teams have had systems where their backups have gone on to be starters? My point is, Gary Grayson's another one. You were talking about draft picks and stuff like that. That's not the heir apparent to Drew Brees. No. Here we go again. Here's another quarterback that they're going to have to draft next year. He hasn't developed anybody that another team's plucked and said, make us our starter. And I find that interesting. When you got a guy like Brees that can teach, and you got a guy that can make an offense like that, how come the Saints haven't been able to do that?
Right. Guys have gone to other teams as backups, but never as starters.
Never a starter.
No, Sean Canfield was... Well, that was the worst of the worst. But Tyler Palico did get a start, but it was because of injuries. Chase Daniel can't even beat out Carson Wentz with the Eagles.
And Ryan Griffin is behind.
Right? I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. I mean,
Winston at Tampa Bay.
Yeah, Bill Belichick has had Matt Castle, who had one strong season, went on to the Chiefs and kind of bombed out there. They hit the jackpot with Jimmy Garoppolo, which Sean Payton, they admitted they liked a lot, but. It's one thing to say we liked him, and another thing to say we drafted him.
No doubt.
I mean, look at Dak Prescott. Look how far he went down to get drafted.
Fourth round.
No doubt.
I mean, even Trevor Siemian, just don't make too many mistakes. That defense is solid.
But again,
I'm not saying Trevor Siemian's that good.
That's what he just said, though. But it's still, it's the evaluation process on this team needs to be questioned. I know the last 2 years they've kind of pressure washed and brought in different people and brought in somebody from the outside, a former Dolphins GM. I get that, but I mean, folks, that's the issue. That's the biggest thing. If you're a fan, you should be upset.
Oh,
you know?
and they are.
You should be upset.
They definitely are.
Yeah, 9,000 tickets on the ticket exchange right earlier this week.
Amazing.
For the Monday night football game.
Yeah. Saints game. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports each and every Thursday night right here on WLE with our live broadcast at 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock on WLE every Friday night, 9 o'clock on Pelican Sports Television. Gus Kattengell of ESPN 100.3 FM here in New Orleans. Garland, Gillen of Fox 8 Sports are our guests tonight. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile. WLAE is currently looking for partners to underwrite this program and other programs on our station. Underwriting on WLAE is affordable, brings exposure to your cause or company, and helps support our nonprofit mission of providing television programs that educate, inform, and inspire the viewers of Greater New Orleans and Southeast Louisiana. If you are interested in learning about program underwriting on WLAE, please contact us at 504-830-3703.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll be going to the phone lines in just a moment. Guys, 10th anniversary of the Dome coming, Steve Gleason's block punt. Your memories of the reopening of the Dome and your thoughts on the emotion of this game.
Yeah, I was with WWL at the time, and so we got a bird's eye view of everything that went down and everything that was coming back and the whole process. And I'll never forget just going downstairs from the studio that day and all the excitement. You had seen all the different stuff. I remember walking in with a hard hat and seeing how they were rebuilding everything. And I'm talking about obviously getting to that point, because before that, I'll still never forget walking into work or on Poydras when people got back and there's not a car driving. You know, I did morning drive sports. I'm there at 4:30 and there's nothing, and you still see the Dome kind of tattered and everything. And it's just the smell. I mean, it was just, you don't forget it.
Right.
And to be there and experience that day, I'll never forget you on the Bud Bridge right at the time, because you didn't have Champion Square built, and you see the big banner and the clock down, the countdown, and then they pull it down, and there's Deuce, and I won't forget that. MTV was live. You had the Goo Goo Dolls. You had all that outside. It was a party atmosphere for hours outside. I remember doing reports from just outside, and you get indoors, and it was a buzz. It was like it did have that big game feel, but it was an event. And it was almost like, hey, I hadn't seen you, and people that used to sit together with, how's your house? That's one thing that stood out to me, because you become friends with the people that sit next to you that are season ticket holders. And hey, I've never gotten season tickets before, and people purposely went and got season tickets that year. People forget, it wasn't Drew Brees that got everybody buying tickets. It was Reggie Bush, and everyone wanted to go do it.
This team almost left,
right?
And they wanted to prove to the NFL, hey, look, this is our team.
So you had first-time season ticket holders sitting in there, and this is what it's like, and just chit-chatting, and then the intro, right? And the music, and it's Bono, and it's Green Day, and it just, man, and then the block punt. I had tears, man. I mean, I remember standing up, cheering. I was doing my best Bobby Hebert, hooting and hollering, and will never, ever forget that. I never will forget it.
Garland, your memories.
Yeah, Super Bowls, the big band plays at halftime. When they played it pregame, that's when I realized the Falcons had zero chance.
Right.
When Bono and Green Day are playing, and they're playing that song, The Saints Are Coming, no one ever heard that song ever. It was an old song, English song. When they played that song, it was over with, man. You just knew. I mean, you could feel like your arms and the goosebumps and everything. The block kick, I mean, even the press box was like shaking. I could feel it. you knew that the Falcons were. It was over with. I thought it was over with before kickoff. When the block punt happened and Sean Payton swinging his arm and doing some kind of karate kick on the sideline.
Yeah.
We were looking through the video yesterday and we're like, what is Sean Payton doing right there? You know, obviously everybody just lost control of themselves. But it was one of the best nights. I mean, if you put a top 3 memories with the Saints, I think that would be number 3 because I think number 2 is the NFC title game and the number 1's obviously them winning the Super Bowl.
And briefly, I just want to add, I find it odd, and I know what he's doing, and I know it's different, and he's brought up the fact that you only have, Streif, you have Breeze, you have Evans, you know, that were on the team back then, and I get that. But don't you find it odd this week, and even it started after the game and on Monday, Sean Payton's doing his best. Well, you know, it's just he's downplaying it a lot. I find that very odd, and I get it. I get that. You know, he said it this morning. Half these kids, you know, weren't even playing football probably. You know, they're in high school when it happened. I understand that. Dude, you're 0-2. I would be rowling it up.
Right.
You can say, you know, for us, the team internally, our focus is to get our first win. But I know it's going to be a great game for the city. It's going to bring back a lot of memories. I expect the emotions to be high. We'll feed off of it. I'll write the script for the guy. I mean, if he says that, get us riled up. You worry about the team, and he's absolutely right to say we can't focus on that. Half of them weren't there. I get it. But, man, I mean, to poo-poo it, I mean, he really has kind of poo-pooed it this week.
I will say Roman on Monday was pretty excited about it.
I'm talking Sean, though. Like, Sean himself. You know, it was 10 years ago. And I'm like,
They better use every bit of that.
That's what I'm getting at.
They better, no doubt about it. 866-3200. We'll open up the phone lines now. I want to talk a little bit about LSU and Mississippi State. Danny Etling, the stage is not too big for him. Second straight week now that he's been able to go through his progressions. He has poise. This team's a different team under Danny Etling. Garland, why don't you take it first?
We were talking about it in the break. The amount of targets, the different receivers. Deshaun Smith is alive. You know, in high school when he was playing at Barb, he tore it up. He was one of the top tight ends in America. He was getting the ball a ton. He finally got his first touchdown reception. The offense is totally different now, and DJ Chark, I mean, who else could drop that ball in? I mean, he dropped it perfectly. DJ didn't even know if he was going to be inbounds or not. All he cared about was catching the ball. He said, I dealt with the other things later. I just want to catch that ball. Malachi Dupree, they figured out they put him in the slot now. They are finally, they got it all together. I know a lot of people are talking gloom and doom this week at Auburn. I think they win. I know they're only 3-point favorites on the road. I just think this offense finally gets it. And Leonard Fournette is not going to fumble it twice in a game ever again. I mean, I can't believe he fumbled it once and lost it, but to fumble it twice and it cost him a 4th down conversion. I like what Etling does. Etling is not on Twitter, you know. He no outside chatter. He is focused on just winning these games, and I think he's a breath of fresh air, and I think that they're going to do successful with him. I don't know if they're going to go to a national championship still. You know, we still got some weeks. They got some massive road games at Auburn. I thought they were going to win at Auburn. I still think they're going to win at Auburn and win against Missouri. The game I circled before the season even started was at Florida. That is going to be a tough one. I'm intrigued to see what Florida does at Tennessee this weekend with another Purdue transfer. Where are these Purdue transfers coming from? I want to meet the guys. Well, actually, Appleby, who's quarterback in Florida, beat out Etling at Purdue. So it's so bizarre that 2 SEC quarterbacks are starting this week that are Purdue transfers.
Maybe the Saints need to look at the Purdue quarterback in a couple of years in the draft. It works well. You know, I kind of have mixed feelings about it in this. It's night and day, clearly, when you look at the offense. You're talking about targeting the tight end. People didn't even realize tight ends existed at LSU, right? When you have a guy like Fournette, how in the world is your passing game not work, right? You know, doing two-lane sidelines, I've seen in Conference USA and I've seen in the American Conference, teams put up 40, 50, 60 points with lesser talented individuals, okay? So coaching helps, and just understanding what your guys can sort of do. And it's just baffled me. When you watch an LSU team with, again, going based on recruiting day in February, right? It's 4 or 5-star guys. It's guys that have little ball caps and do this presentation that they want to take their talents to the Louisiana. Okay, how in the world do they not score? It's mind-boggling to me because it makes no sense, right? We're watching games before or after, and it's, you know, you look at what the Big 12's done, the Pac-12. Now you see the Big 10. In these spread offenses and the way they are now, for you not to score something's up.
Yes.
And you know what LSU and Tulane had in common? Quarterback play.
Yeah.
You got to have a quarterback, and it's literally that simple. So my big thing why I have mixed feelings is it's night and day. I agree with Garland. There's more talent. This guy's spreading it, and the more they play together, the better they're going to be. Why didn't you make this decision earlier? Because this isn't a difficult decision if you're judging honestly. This should have been made much earlier.
And at the very least, should have been given an opportunity at Wisconsin. You brought up Tulane. You brought up the quarterback position. Jonathan Brantley looks like he is a heck of an athlete.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned this week on the show, maybe for him, the tailback position might be the place he goes. But then I had Graff on today, Todd Graff, the voice of the Green Wave, and he's telling me, Eric, I'm at practice. These guys are completing these passes. He doesn't know what it is in the game that I haven't been able to do it, but man, they've got the same problem that LSU had with Brandon Harris. They got to find a quarterback because they got a solid running game. They got a solid defense. If they just get someone with a pulse at the quarterback position that can throw the ball, they're going to be. I think they got a shot to win some games this year and to build on that.
Dead last in the NCAA in passing.
Oh, 3 of 12 for 21 yards?
I mean, they literally are dead last. Statistically, 55 yards is what they average a game. and I'm not being ugly. I get a kid. He cannot hit you right now. On a screen. Right. I don't know if it's like match anxiety or game anxiety.
Well, you're down there. What are you saying?
I think the first thing that I talk about, too, during breaks with Todd is I blame the high school coach. Like, it's almost like, did you not coach these kids? I don't blame them completely, but I think what you're saying, and you know this a lot more than I do. You shoot high school, you cover it, you talk about it on y'all's show on Friday nights. We're taking athletes that are extraordinary athletes, speed. I mean, your Lamar Jacksons, whatever. Give them the ball, hut, clap, look left or right. We show them a picture of Eric, Garland's food blog, restaurant, whatever, and that means something, and we'll run a play. And then I might have to throw a pass or two. That works in high school. You can win games. You can go to the title game and all that stuff. The problem is as they progress and they get older and you have to do stuff, like I am not a fan of having not just your quarterback, but your running back and your receiver spend 2/3 of your play clock looking at the sideline, not the defense, not seeing if they're adjusting, not picking up the blitzes. You're not growing as a player, and I think that's what I see. I don't see a guy that is stupid or... He doesn't have the mechanics. He hasn't been taught how to throw a football. He's throwing wounded ducks. It's not spirals. It's not holding it correctly. It's not like there's a picture of Danny Etling that's perfect, right, that I've seen all week in their stories. And he has the Drew Brees left hand out, the targeting hand. Mechanics. You don't see that with those guys.
You covered Kuyet in high school. Does he have the ability to throw the football?
He was more of a running quarterback in high school. I was surprised that he got a scholarship to Tulane. He wasn't a good thrower, but I thought Brantley did throw it a lot in high school.
Right.
He said this week he could throw the football.
Yeah.
Okay.
He can throw it. I heard throughout training camp he has trouble. He can throw it, just not throwing it directly at you.
He's Cam Newton light. I mean,
he can run.
He has a gun, and I mean, the guy can throw it a mile. It's just, and again, but accuracy and things of that nature you can work on. So there is hope. And by the way, he's a freshman.
Well,
so
and look, they got a great running game. They got a nice defense.
Right.
If they can just get a guy that can complete them, just to keep the defense honest.
Numbers too, man. They're 70-something scholarship players, and it's thin. And I'm excited to see what Willie can do in a couple of years.
It's gonna be a good game Saturday night.
Yeah.
The ULL game's gonna be tight. That's gonna be a good one.
And they always bring a nice crowd too.
Anthony Jennings, former LSU quarterback.
There you go.
Let's see how he does.
Let's head to the phone lines, grab some calls. Brian is in Metairie. Brian, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Brian.
Gentlemen, thank you. I just want to make a couple of comments, and then I'm going to listen. First off, I just don't understand how you have a 14-point lead going into the fourth quarter. You score 34 points. 9 out of 10 NFL teams are going to win a football game doing that. The Saints, we never seem to hit the kill switch. Never. We have no killer instinct. We get a lead, and we sit on it. Now, whether it's by design or by accident, I personally think it's coaching. Since Sean Payton won the Super Bowl, really since Bountygate, in my opinion, he has not been the same coach. He doesn't have the aggressiveness like the onside kick from the Super Bowl. His plays this week almost passed out when I saw reverse. I almost passed out. And another thing real quick, and then I'm going to leave you off the Any other team in the league gets 3 turnovers, they get points.
Yes.
We can't score a sniff. We can't even get on the other side of the field. That is just plain terrible, and that's coaching. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Garland?
Well, if one of those 3 turnovers wound up being the blocked field goal. That is the biggest stat of the past weekend there, is to get 3 turnovers, get no points out of 3 forced turnovers. I still think Sean Payton's got a killer instinct. I mean, they go deep a lot. Now, obviously, the ones like
NFL defenses figured him out, though. I mean, does he diversify this offense?
Pete Carmichael's the one calling the plays now. You know, it's interesting. You know, everybody. I think John Gruden's finally figured out. You notice his name's not up for any more jobs anymore. The game has passed John Gruden by. What he could do in early 2000s passed him by. I'm not saying Sean Payton, the game's passed him by, but they know what he's doing. They know exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
Pete Carmichael's calling the plays. But there's no surprises with the Saints anymore.
You heard what I said, right? You gotta help. You got to throw and you got to run a little. You can be more pass heavy. I get it. Drew's your guy. The thing that stands out to me too is, and I get it, and I understand it to an extent, but I've never totally been on board with it. We hear Drew go, well, it can be anybody's day. You know, Odell Beckham Jr. is the guy, right? And Victor Cruz too as well. Kelvin Benjamin. I mean, I think of teams and there's a guy. I get that the spread and, hey, it might be Eric today. Garland may catch 7 passes. The next day it's Gus. I get that. Spread it around. But who's my guy? You know, who is my guy that I need to go to that's going to jumpstart me, it's going to be my guy? When I get turnovers, the game is tight, we haven't scored, I'm looking at the clock, it's 6 minutes left in the 4th, I need a first down. Who is my guy rather than I'm going to read the defense and see where it goes? And I think that sometimes is good, but I think it can also come back to bite you because I don't have a thing, right? Paterno back in the day with Penn State. He said it best. I have a left run play, a right run play, and one right up the middle. And I know I can run all 3, and when I need to, I'll call them. I love this laminated play sheet. It's hundreds of you know, I just get the sense and feel the Saints don't have like 5 plays they can go to, and it's going to work, and you know what it is.
Right. Let's go to Greg in Houma. Greg, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Greg.
Hey, guys. I just got a question. You know, we talk about all the buzz and all the players that are held accountable and everything, but what about the coaches? I mean, Joe Vitt's been there. The special team coach has been there. I don't understand why when you change defensive coordinators every year that you don't change all the working pieces. You know, if you're an employer and you hire a new sales manager, well, he brings in his own people. And it just seems like all those coaches still stay around and we end up with the same results. And I'll hang up and listen.
We talked about untouchables. Joe Vitt is untouchable. I mean, if he got him through the bounty season, he has been there forever. I gather there's just some people that you just can't get rid of. You need that security blanket. You need a guy that's been in the league a lot longer than you, and I think Vitt's been in the league a lot longer than Coach Payton has. He's one of those guys that will probably stay around until the end. I mean, Sean Payton and Joe Vitt, they came in together.
Right.
They're going out together.
Right.
So
that's one of the biggest criticisms we have of against Sean Payton. Some of those guys are untouchable, like he is untouchable as well. Let's go to Wallace. Wallace, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Wallace.
All right, how y'all doing today, man?
Wallace. How you doing?
I got 2 things to ask y'all. Okay, Sean Payton ain't the same coach no more. You know, I don't know what got into him, but he's not the same coach. I don't know what kind of plays he be throwing in. And see that tight end? Stop throwing the ball to that tight end. He's a bust. Go to Michael Thomas, and I think we can win some games. I'll sit down and let y'all listen at y'all what y'all got to say.
Gus?
I find it interesting that we've had 3 callers, and they're all pretty much they're throwing in there. They kind of get a sense and a feel that something's different with Sean. And I'll say this. What we saw in 09 and 11, we have to remember, was a veteran-laden team of a bunch of a mix of different guys. I mean, your Lance Moores and stuff, they at least played like an NFL Europe and stuff. Fujitas and stuff, you know, they came from different parts, but they were not rookies and undrafted rookie free agents trying to build. He's trying to do that, going back to the killer instinct. That took a couple of years to develop, right? I mean, the 2006 season was just magical. Things fell into place. But people forget they followed that up with 2 8-8 seasons. that killer instinct developed from not doing it those 2 8-8 seasons. In 09, it all came together. But that was a team, Garland, where you can just give me a look and I know where you're going. Eric, I know where you're going. But that takes time.
Sure.
That in the 06 team, I think no one in the league knew what Sean Payton was doing.
Right.
I mean, I think the one game he was using fullback a ton. The breakthrough, he was much more. He was creative as he is now, but everybody did not know what he was doing.
Right.
Back then.
That's what I'm saying. I think they've got a little bit of a book on him now.
Right.
And again, the
needs to
best
adjust.
coaches self-scout themselves, and they make the changes accordingly in the offseason. I don't know if we've seen that since the Saints have had real success. Let's go to Thomas in New Orleans. Thomas, welcome. Hey, Thomas.
Yeah.
You're on the show. Welcome.
Okay. My question is that what are we going to do about the kicker? Because kickers win football games. Shall we replace him? I'd like to get y'all's opinion.
Thank you, Thomas. I think we've said it.
Not yet.
That's an untouchable there, right?
Right now, I mean, Will Lutz is. I'm not saying he's untouchable as Joe Vitt, but right now we say he's untouchable. If he goes, if he blows his Falcons game, Kai Forbath, where you at? Because I know Connor Barth with the Chiefs. I mean the Bears.
Right.
But Connor Barth missed a gimme this past week. So yeah, Kai Forbath is a phone call away. But it's intriguing that Sean has stood by him these first 2 weeks because he's a rookie, and I'm sure that he's fragile right now.
I get a Thomas phone call once a week. You know, Cairo Santos played down the street.
But isn't it true, though?
He played down the street. He's kicking for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
You know, the thing about it that's interesting with this kicking situation is I like it in this aspect. The NFL wanted to make it a bigger play in a game, and ever since they backed it up, it absolutely is. I have the Sunday ticket, and I'm telling you, every other touchdown, the dude's either doinking it off the uprights or it's coming to play in a part in the game. The Dallas game, I mean, missing the extra point, wait to go get your nacho and dome foam because
definitely.
it matters.
Yes, no doubt. Your alma mater will be playing at Zephyr Field this week against John Curtis, Brother Martin versus John Curtis. You covered the story this week. Guys, what do you think?
I think it's cool to kind of see that and do that. Look, there's no doubt Zephyr Field and the Z's, they're doing everything they can from rebranding the Zephyrs now to trying to get football in there. They're trying to make that facility matter again. And I don't mean that in an ugly way, but it needs to matter. It needs upgrades. It needs money. And the only way that's going to happen, and look, they call it the Shrine on Airline, but if we travel and you travel, AAA ballparks, you see the one next to the Beau Rivage. I mean, it's not even close. But for that to happen, the legislators in Louisiana need to go, well, does it matter?
Right.
This might help.
Right.
Yeah, we talked about it beforehand. They're not going to fill in the grass. It's too expensive. Zephyrs can't afford it. The state isn't putting up money. But they're going to do their Friday night fireworks. It's going to be cool on Friday night. The thing is, they're doing this 8 times this season. I don't know if it's going to wear out by the end, the excitement. But Friday night, ESPNU, national television. I'm sorry, Gus, but Brother Martin gave up 55 points to Carr last week. JT Curtis, they are licking their chops. It's going to be a high-scoring affair. And I think John Curtis is going to put up a ton of points in this game. Brother Martin's defense wasn't strong last year. Maybe they'll fix some things, but that going against that offense of John Curtis is tough to read.
I'll tell you what, I know he does it on Fridays and stuff. It's really cool to see Louisiana and New Orleans games being televised nationally because I go everywhere else and there's Texas games and everywhere, so it's cool to see that.
Gus, Kattengell, Garland, Gillen, thanks for being with us tonight on the show.
Absolutely, man.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember the rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE at 10 p.m. and also on Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. That's 9 p.m. every Friday night. You can catch me on the radio, 990 a.m. WGSO, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. weekdays. The TuneIn Radio app is a great way to download the show to be able to listen live. You can also listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. And, of course, all the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports can be found at ericasher.com as well. Special thanks to the WLAE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Kenny Juneau, Naila Jones, Richard King, Philip Williamson, and my director, William Hill. Also, special thanks to our guests, Gus Kattengell and Garland Gillen. I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you right back here next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is the first place award winner of the 2015 New Orleans Press Club's Excellence in Journalism Award for the category of Best TV Sports Show.